You pick up the rock with both hands. The skull at your feet is already empty, picked clean by vultures 2 days ago, scoured by jackals last night. You bring the stone down anyway. The bone splits, and the soft gray meal inside is yours. This is dinner, 2 million years before fire, and you are not the hunter. You are the cleanup crew. Because here's what everyone gets wrong about the question. What did your ancestors eat before they could cook? You picture meat, fire, sharpened sticks, a fresh zebra haunch. Forget that. For roughly 2 million years before any controlled flame, your ancestors weren't first at the kill. They were fifth. Lions ate first, then hyenas, then vultures, then jackals, and then a small, upright primate would shuffle out of the long grass with a rounded stone in its hand, look at what was left, and smile. Because what was left was exactly what it had evolved to eat. Bone marrow, brain matter, the fatty, calorie-dense tissue locked inside skulls and long bones that no big cat, no hyena, no scavenging bird had jaws strong enough to crack. Your ancestors were specialists in secondhand food, and the leftovers were the single most important meal in the history of your species. Here is the part that gets under your skin. Your brain, the thing reading these words right now, burns about a fifth of your daily calories just sitting there idling, 20% of your fuel for 3 pounds of tissue. No other primate runs a brain this expensive. Chimps can't afford one. Gorillas can't afford one. The math doesn't work on leaves and fruit. Something had to change in the diet, something dense, something fatty, something reliable, long before fire ever showed up. That something was marrow. In the 1980s, the archaeologist Henry Bunn was sorting through animal bones from a site called FLK Zinj at Olduvai Gorge in Tanzania. The bones were nearly 2 million years old. They had 2 kinds of marks on them, tooth marks from carnivores and cut marks from stone tools. The pattern kept pointing somewhere specific. Hominins were getting at those bones reliably enough that this wasn't an accident. This was a strategy. And the strategy was breaking things open. The paleoanthropologist Jessica Thompson has argued that the very first stone tools, the chipped rocks called Oldowan tools used by Homo habilis, were never really for butchering. Sure, they could slice. But what they were exquisitely designed to do was hammer, to break open the long bones of an antelope leg and the dome of a wildebeest skull. The world's first technology was, in essence, a nutcracker for skulls. Think about what that means for the body you're sitting in. To get at that marrow, your ancestors needed to walk long distances across the savanna, which favored an upright stride. They needed hands free of the ground to carry both a hammerstone and a bone, which favored permanent bipedalism. And they needed a brain just smart enough to remember where the kills tended to happen. Marrow paid for the brain. The brain found more marrow, and once that loop started spinning, it didn't stop, except for one inconvenient fact. Your ancestors weren't carnivores. They never have been. They were, and you still are, omnivorous opportunists with a deep, embarrassing dependence on roots. Look at the chemistry of the teeth. The geochemists, Matt Sponheimer and Julia Lee-Thorp, ran isotope analyses on the tooth enamel of australopithecines, the small-brained, upright ancestors who came before the genus Homo. The signal was clear and weird. These were not chimp-style fruit eaters. They were eating a huge proportion of what scientists call C4 plants, tropical grasses, sedges, and crucially, the underground storage organs of those plants. In plain English, the swollen, starchy tubers buried under the African dirt. Wild yams, things that look like ugly potatoes and taste like cardboard. You would have spent half your life digging. Modern Hadza foragers in Tanzania still get an enormous fraction of their calories not from meat but from a tuber called ikwa. It tastes, by every account, terrible. They eat it anyway. They eat it raw. They eat it while walking. They eat it because when the hunt fails, when the berries are gone, when the honey nest is empty, the tubers are still there, underground, year-round, reliable. Plants don't move. Plants don't fight back. Plants are the safety net that kept your line alive through every drought. And then there's the strangest member of the pre-fire menu, honey. The Hadza get up to 15% of their annual calories from wild honey. They climb the trees. They take the stings. Honey is almost pure sugar, denser in calories than meat. Your ancestors followed a small bird called the honey guide, which still today leads humans to bee colonies across East Africa. The relationship is so old that the bird literally evolved a special chattering call to recruit humans, and people in northern Mozambique have a return call to summon the bird. A wild animal evolved to ask you for help. That's how long humans have been eating honey. So here's the picture. Before fire, you ate marrow, brains, scavenged scraps, tubers, fruit, insects, eggs, and honey. A messy, opportunistic, mostly raw diet punctuated by greasy windfalls of bone fat whenever something else had done the killing. Mystery solved. Pack it up. Except for one thing. Try eating it. Try right now to eat raw zebra liver and a fistful of muddy raw yam. Your stomach will quit inside an hour. Your gut is small, about 60% the size of a chimpanzee's gut, scaled to body mass. You don't have the colon to ferment raw fiber. Your jaw is weak. Your molars are tiny. By every anatomical measure, you are an animal optimized for food that's already been processed somehow before it reaches your teeth. Which raises a question the Harvard primatologist Richard Wrangham has spent 30 years asking. Could a creature with your body even survive on a truly raw diet? In his 2009 book, Catching Fire, Wrangham argued the honest answer is no. No human population on Earth has ever been documented living long-term on raw food in the wild. Even modern raw foodists, with blenders and grocery stores, often stop menstruating. The body, given the choice, votes for the fire. And here is the dark corner. For most of the history of your lineage, for the long, slow 2 million-year run before flame became a tool, your ancestors were probably hungry, not romantically hungry, just mundanely, daily hungry. They were small. They died young. The average australopithecine seems to have lived into their 20s at best. Children starved. Mothers starved, producing milk. Whole bands were wiped out by a single bad season. The pre-fire menu kept your line alive, but it kept it alive on the edge. Bone thin, one drought from extinction. You exist because, generation after generation, just enough of them found just enough marrow and just enough yams to make it to the next mating season. There is nothing romantic about that math. It is a long, quiet survival paid for in lost children. And yet, here's the part nobody told you. They may have been cooking before they had fire. In 2016, the Harvard researchers Catherine Zink and Daniel Lieberman published a study in Nature showing what happens when you process meat the old way, with a sharp flake and a hammerstone. Slicing and pounding raw meat reduces the chewing effort by about a third. A third. Bash a tuber between two rocks, and the same thing happens. It becomes dramatically easier to digest. The Oldowan toolkit wasn't just a nutcracker for skulls. It was a kitchen. Stone Age food processing, softening, crushing, mashing, did mechanically what fire would later do chemically. Your ancestors were tenderizing. They were prepping. The kitchen is older than the flame. Tonight, somewhere in your kitchen, you will pick something up. A jar, a bag, a piece of bread. You will twist a lid or break a crust or crack open a nut, and you will not think about it once. That motion, the one you make without noticing, is the oldest motion your hands know. Long before you had a stove, your ancestors stood in the dry grass, lifted a rounded stone in two hands, and brought it down on a bone they did not kill. They were not strong. They were not first. They were not even fast. But they were stubborn enough to crack what no other animal could crack, patient enough to dig what no other animal would dig, and clever enough to follow a bird to a hive. Every full stomach is a debt to a hungry one. The fire came later. The hunger came first. And somewhere in the small, automatic motion of your hand reaching for food tonight, 2 million years are still moving.